Welcome to this week's exciting edition of your favorite program, Yilungelo, Lakho, It's Your Right. Uyazi-ke sizakuni bukhoma la kumamba phambili SABC 1 Mzansi for sure sisakaza sikhathi singe futhi naku SABC Lehigh as well as on the SABC Plus app. Uhleli nomangcolosi Alicia Unhlanhla wakajali ngithi sanibonani babukeli mbukeli uyazi-ke the festive season is finally upon us and so are various scams doing the rounds, and one of those now catching consumers off guard are vacation booking fraud scams. Yebo mbukeli abathenga abaningi phela sebelahlekelwe yigidi zeyimali bethi phela babhuka bona amaholide kanti babhuka indawo kanye namathikithi ayimbumbulu. Asingene shiqe udabeni letla namhlanje ukuthi sikucacisele ukuthi phela wena uzivikela kanjani kulobu bugebengu. Manje ke ukukhuluma kabanzi ngodaba lethu umbukela samukele la e-studio intokazi niyayazi kakhulu sesilande ezinkulu ngisho sisi Ouma Ramaru okhulumela ihhovisi le Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman. Let's also go to Cape Town and welcome Mr. Otto Vries, who's joining us virtually now. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the Association of Southern African Travel Agents and Travel Advisors, ASATA. Let's start with you, sis Ouma. Good afternoon. Welcome, Dogazi Angsakwazi. Siyakubamukela kwilungelo lakho.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, let's welcome Mr. Vries out in Cape Town. Mr. Vries, it's a pleasure to have you with us. So maybe just also start by briefly telling us what ASATA is also all about. Welcome.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. Good afternoon, everybody. So ASATA is the Association of Southern African Travel Agents and Travel Advisors. And we have, for almost 70 years now, been representing the travel agency sector. We are a non-profit voluntary body, but we do a lot of advocacy work in terms of representing the sector, both in terms of engagements with legislative as well as private stakeholders. But more importantly, I think specifically if we talk about today's discussions, we do a lot of work in empowering our members by providing them with advocacy, insights, training programs, compliancy guidelines, and also all of that is part of making sure that we're raising the industry standards by promoting ethical conduct, professionalism, and ensuring that there's a high quality of service across the travel sector.
Awesome news. Sis Ouma, niba recognize nini ASATA?
Siyaba recognize siyasebenzisana nabo ngempela.
Okay, awusichazele mhlambe ngobudlelwane benu ukuthi banisiza kanjani specifically mase kufika kulama cases la esikhuluma ngayo namhlanje, which is ama travel scams, njengoba bona kungathi nje baya moderator by regulatory body of some sort.
Okay, in terms of spaces traveling nama bookings, magube the traveling agent or leyo accommodation area or a place registered nabo, then it's easy for us to refer those complaints to them because they've got a relationship already nalabo bantu, so they can engage those suppliers easily. Okay. You know, so that is how they come into our space.
Okay. Asikhulume ngalama scams, Sis Ouma. I mean, where would you find lama scams in particular? Ngikhuluma nge-platform because ngiyazi ukuthi mengibuka research yami ithi mostly they are synonymous with ama websites which have been cloned as well as social media. Ningena kanjani ke nina lapho umuntu eseduphiwe on social media? Isasebenza ni Consumer Protection Act?
Yes, isasebenza, and I must say ukuthi, you know, it's shocking the rise guma complaints relating to ama bookings, wama accommodation and traveling. It's shocking. I must say ukuthi, you know, just in the financial year of 2025, our office have received over 30% of complaints relating to online, you know, and when we look into only from March to date, we have received over 200 cases relating to bookings and traveling, scammed, you know, consumers, and some of the complaints are relating to Uguti cancellation fee. You know, life happens. You have booked in advance, you want to cancel, then you cannot get your redress. Sometimes you book a place, they've advertised on the website, and when you get to the place, it's not what they've told you. So that is misleading. So all these related complaints about accommodation and traveling, they are provided for in a provision in terms of the Consumer Protection Act. Then consumers are protected. So that's how now we come in and look into what happened here and what does the law say.
Okay, let's go back to Otto. Otto, maybe talk to us about maybe the benefits then of using an ASATA approved or recognized or accredited travel agencies so that you don't find yourself being a victim of these scammers.
Sure. Look, I think we're very proud of our record and on a number of levels. First of all, in terms of the formal travel industry, we represent in terms of the market value in South Africa, well over 90% of the key stakeholders. Secondly, as indicated, we've been operating as a representative forum on behalf of the travel agent and travel community for 70 years. We'll be celebrating that anniversary next year.
Nice.
But more importantly, because we have a code of conduct, we have a strong constitution, there are a certain set of criteria that members need to be able to meet in order to be accredited by ASATA, in order to be certified by ASATA. Certainly, through those checks and balances, we will and can provide a certain level of comfort to the traveling consumer that if they book with a member that is affiliated or is a member of ASATA, that there is a strong sense of confidence and trust that you are dealing with a bona fide travel professional that has been assessed and reviewed and has met the criteria in order to be a member of our organization.
That's great, Otto. So maybe talk to us about generally what is the current state then of holiday travel booking specifically in the country when you take into account the fact that we're currently living in a digitally enhanced world where AI is very pervasive, as well as online bookings are, you know, the most convenient way to actually do any of your shopping or any of the duties that you would normally go to a specific hard body or hard brick office previously.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not a unique challenge to our industry, online fraud, and certainly in the services industries, we're seeing an increasing number of cloned accounts or accounts that look very similar to legitimate ones that are being used and people are being caught out. And it has become a very real concern for us as an industry in that we are one of those service sectors that have been quite heavily impacted in terms of online scams and fraud situations with online bookings, either through social media platforms or cloned websites. And it's not unique to South Africa, it is a global challenge, and as a sector collectively, we are constantly engaging each other and various legislators and stakeholders to do our level best to try and make sure that at the very least we can provide the right type of support, information and comfort to the booking traveler. And, you know, this is why, for example, one of the strong points that we put out there is that before you choose a professional travel advisor or a travel management company or a travel agent to book your trip with, please do visit our website and you can check exactly whether that business is or isn't currently a member of our organization. That should be your first point of contact. But it is critical, generally speaking, to verify. It is so important to make sure that you do all your checks and balances, Google the businesses, see what the reviews look like, try and make sure that if the offers are too good to be true, maybe they just are. There are a number of things that I'm sure we'll get a chance to unpack that during the course of our conversation today.
Absolutely.
Around how we help consumers out there make the right, safe choices.
All right, Otto, absolutely. In God we trust, everything else verify, right? That is the motto. Masiphuthume siye itolo sithathe ikhefu. We back shortly after that. Lapho ngizovula khona ingcingo ke nawe ukwazi ukuthi ubambe iqhaza ohlelweni lethu namhlanje. We back shortly after this. Singayindawo. mbokeli, welcome back to Yilungelo Lakho. Ingcingo zethu ke sezivuliwe njengoba bengikuthembisile ukuthi phela nawe ubambe iqhaza ohlelweni lethu. Ngasishayela ucingo ku 0117140671, alternatively 0117140672. You can also send us a WhatsApp to 0608449857 or sithumele email to consumer@sabc.co.za noma utholani nathi lapha on our social media platforms. My guest today, Mr. Otto Vries, the CEO of the Association of Southern African Travel Agents and Travel Advisors, ASATA, and here in studio with me is Ms. Ouma Ramaru, Consumer Goods and Services Ombuds, of course, representing Lelo office. Usijoyina la e-studio. Mbukeli sikhuluma ngalama holiday scams, specifically ukuthi usubhukhile ke wena iholiday, usuthola ukuthi phela usupakisha impahla, usuye airport, usufika lapha kuthiwa ayi sisi ayikho lelo gama laleyo company, ayikho leyo booking yaleyo destination, asimazi kwalowo muntu othi ukubhukhele under. So sikhuluma ngalezo zinto ukuthi sizama ukuthi sinicebise ukuthi ningabheka kanjani ukuthi nenze sure ukuthi lama scammers akanibambi. Sis Ouma, I mean, why does the travel industry seem to be such a fertile ground for these scams? Are there not enough regulations for people that want to actually enter the market that they just take advantage? Ukuthi yazini kunama loopholes la ngizovane ngibeke ngi-advertise iwebsite abantu bazolokhuza word of mouth ngizobe senginemali. Mase befuna imali zabo abantu, I simply just delete the website and I pack my things and ngihambele.
Precisely, yes, lo mbuzo muhle kanjani, and important because that is what we are seeing on the ground, given the types of complaints we are receiving from the office. Uguti, there are people who are just putting up website as a fake, and it's happening. It's there. So what we can do is to educate. Uguti, what exactly do you need to look for when you are looking for these accommodation places, travel agencies to book via?
So because it seems like social media is not the way to go. But also it looks like now if you trust a certain website, that might also not be the way to go because you might come across a cloned website.
And you know, to an extent that a well-known brand of a company,
yes,
they can just steal that well-known brand, create a website that is fake. And if you are not careful, you wouldn't know the difference. You wouldn't notice the difference because you just see the brand. The only thing is, you know, this website is fake. They are AI generated. And AI, it's easy. Uguti imise grammar, you know, the spelling errors. So these are tiny things that you need to be very, very careful, maupega, you know. And I must say, during our break, we were talking with, but these are nitty-gritties. Umtomdala uzozazi kanjani.
And bathanda ukubhukhela ingane nabazukulu ama-holiday manje uzofuna ukuthatha izukulu mhlambe befuna nokuthi kube surprise. Therefore akazange azathi Alicia uzungisize sibhukhele into ungibhekele ungiverifyele these things. So how do we help labo bantu, because zibona abantu esikhuluma nabo namhlanje?
Yeah, and unfortunately it's sad because mawubheka leyo complaint yabona ukuthi umuntu omdala. And my answer will be to you, bring umuntu omncane o understandayo, you know, ozokufundela nanani. But like you are saying, what if it's a surprise?
Exactly.
You know, you want to surprise them. But by the time a complaint figure ombud office, that means the damage has already occurred. Now we need to step in, you know, and make sure, Uguti, how do we now mitigate this problem? Uguti, the consumer must obtain the redress in line with the Consumer Protection Act. But I must say, Uguti, the only thing that the consumer, Uguti, read carefully, like Otto has alluded, read carefully. And I must say again, Uguti, you know, these websites, they look so real. You touched on social media.
Even the trained eye can actually miss that when Mrs. Ouma says, Uguti, even the trained eye, who are constantly reading, you might even miss it because these are so sophisticated. It basically looks like the original website.
But the red flags, we must talk about the red flags.
Let's talk about the red flags. And I was going to ask Otto as well to give us those red flags. Maybe Otto, let's start with you. Maybe just outline some of those red flags when you are actually that you need to watch out for when you actually go the route of booking a travel agent online.
Yeah, sure. I think first and foremost, and this is why we work so closely with the Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman is because prevention is better than cure.
True.
To Ouma's point, unfortunately, by the time they are brought into the conversation, the damage has been done. I alluded before our break, verify, and this is so critical because it's not about just one thing. You need to do multiple things to make sure that you have comfort that you're actually dealing with a bona fide agent or a travel management company or an advisor that can support you. But a few of the things over the years that have stuck with us and we believe remain relevant, we still think are important red flags. Again, we strongly, in a non-regulated environment, we strongly encourage that consumers use ASATA accredited agents and advisors, and they can verify that using our website. The other thing that you need to look for from a red flags point of view, and it's again, too good to be true. It is. If it's too good to be true, alarm bells should go off. That should be a reason for you to verify. A few of the other important things that we have noticed is excuses. When you are being told that you are going to be receiving your vouchers or your air tickets within a certain time frame, and what you're actually seeing is that you're not getting what you were promised in time, that should be a red flag. One of the ways that you can check is to contact the supplier, so the hotel or the airline directly, to verify whether in fact there is a booking. So that is another option that you can use to verify.
All right, thank you.
We found also over the years, one of the interesting things, and whilst we have complete faith and confidence in the banking system at large, we found that when a travel business does not have any other facility to accept payment other than via EFT, that should be an alarm bell. Nothing wrong with EFT, but you should, as a consumer, be able to choose whether you want to transfer the funds into the bank account of the travel agent or whether you would prefer to rather use your credit card.
Otto.
And this is quite important because of a credible agency that's been accredited by the bank, but also it speaks of you having recourse if indeed the services are not rendered. So those are some of the high-level ones that we've picked up.
All right.
And we remain strong.
You know, Otto, you make a very valid point there, because I was going to ask exactly on that, because it seems like this is where people can actually draw the comparison to say this is a deal that is too good to be true. When you are getting pressured to make payment, and especially via EFT or quick other payment methods and not the normal route. So, Sis Ouma, that is something that consumers can actually look at. Ukuthi payment methods. Megwathiwa enze EFT or send my funds into this specific account. That's where you need to start being suspicious.
Absolutely. Just in addition of what Otto has said, indaba yokuthi uyenze payment via EFT, that is another red flag. And again, just to make sure ukuthi abathengi they are aware ukuthi magube bathi kuwe, then you can pay to these banking details. Can we check ukuthi are they personal banking details or do they belong to some company? And the same banking details should reflect, if ever it's a company, the name of the company, not anything else. So if abatengi, they can just look into that closely. They can at least save their hard-earned money, because we are seeing them losing lots and lots of monies. I must say, on the over 200 cases that we received, just between March and now, most of the consumers are saying, but when we get there, it's ganga. There's nothing.
There's no brick and mortar offices
anymore. Imagine. And it's so patalil. Like Otto is saying, now ukulimile Alicia ukuthi, pressure, they give so much pressure.
Hold that thought, Sis Ouma, because I really want to take another break, because I want to allow ababukeli nabo ukuthi bafementise le ndaba engqondweni yabo, because ngiyazi ukuthi ngiskemiwe. I'm going to talk about a case that is currently that has actually made some news headlines in the media recently. Abantu nabo bantshontshelwe imali. I think isesebamelini okwamanje. But catch that all after the break. Welcome back. Mbogele 011-714-0671, alternatively 011-714-0672. 0608449857 is, of course, our WhatsApp number, or email us your views to consumer@sabc.co.za. Sikhuluma namhlanje Mbogele ngama fake holiday booking scams. Uyazi ukuthi sebeqalile ukuthi wena mhlambe kade kuthiwe ukhokha uzohamba uye kuquphi niye eMpumalanga niye even further than eMpumalanga mhlambe kuzothiwa niye US for imali engakafaka imali engaka mhlambe nifake ni stock fela mase niqoqele impahla nina senise airport kuthiwa hayi asiyazi lo booking. My guest this afternoon, Mr. Otto de Vries, the CEO of the Association of Southern African Travel Agents and Travel Advisors, or ASATA, and here in studio with me is the lovely sis Ouma Ramaru from the Consumer Goods and Services Ombuds Office. So, Otto, maybe let's come to you. I mean, we're talking about, why do you think then it makes it so easy for the industry or for the scammers to target, of course, unsuspecting victims within this industry? So I'm suggesting to Ouma here that is it so easy to just basically put up a website and say that you are a travel agent? Why is there no regulation or prerequisite laws when you want to start such a business so that you go through the regular checks as well as balances? Can you talk to us about that, sir, in terms of your experience?
Yeah, sure. Look, it's an industry globally that is not generally regulated. There is a sense that, and it's a debate that we can have, that in some circles there is the idea that we need to have more checks and balances. The counter argument to that is that associations like ASATA, and we are mirrored and reflected across the globe. Pretty much every country and every market has an association that represents the sector, are doing in general a very good job at protecting the professionalism of the industry and at the same time the consumers and their choices. And the parallel to that is that for the large part, most travel agents and travel advisors are doing an excellent job. They are delivering real value, they're delivering meaningful service, and they're making a good contribution to the economy. They are creating jobs. And then some could argue that because of the lack of regulation, it is an industry that will allow people the opportunity to open an agency and to do a good job. I think where it often goes south is that there is a very big magnifying glass on our industry in particular, because booking leisure travel, in particular for families, it's hard-earned savings. People have worked all year round.
True.
This is the one opportunity where they get to do experiences, spend time away with family and friends, and they are high-ticket items. These trips are not cheap anymore. So, if ever there was a further motivation to say, look, if I'm going to open my wallet to book an expensive holiday package, let me at least make sure that I'm working with a qualified, experienced travel advisor or travel agency. But I just want to come back, if I may, before we continue, on the payment side. I need to just add that in many cases, the pressure that is put onto the customer is not necessarily directed by the agent or the advisor. It's actually pressure that comes from the suppliers of those products and services. So airlines have what they call dynamic pricing models, which means that the airline fares are changing constantly.
True.
It makes it very difficult for travel agents and travel advisors to guarantee prices. And that dynamic pricing we're starting to see filter through into other service providers, hotels, accommodation providers. What you see as a price today changes tomorrow. And if we want to try to lock in a price, unfortunately, it means that there has to be a payment and a transaction that happens.
Absolutely. And Sis Ouma, I suppose this is a problem, especially for these international or global trips. Like Otto is saying, I mean, these are expensive trips, so a lot of money goes into it and a lot of planning goes into it. It's not like you can just wake up today and decide which you want to go to Europe. So I suppose then consumer goods, maybe more regulation is needed on the part of laba abathi bayawadayisa lama services. Do you ever do an audit of laba operator currently in the industry?
Not quite, although it's a mandate, a National Consumer Commission.
Okay.
Yeah, to do that. They have got the authority to go down to the market and see Uguti who are not conducting their business in line with the Consumer Protection Act. Because I must say, Guba Tengi and Alicia Uguti, the Consumer Protection Act gives those provisions. Uguti, the consumer is not to be misled,
yes,
right?
True.
The right to clear information with your comfortable language, you know, right to disclose prices. You cannot sign for something now, a price now. Once you sign, you are closing the agreement. They cannot come up with a different pricing. And I'm raising that because that is something we are seeing in the complaints coming in. Uguti, the calculations will be done about the booking, and then consumer agree to that price, but later then they raise, incur more cost. But the legislation is very clear. Uguti, that is totally unacceptable. So once the consumer put down their signature, you cannot come up and say, oh, Gonje, there is this and that. So consumers are protected, but the gap esibonayo, Uguti, consumers are allowing the terms and conditions which are not in line with the legislation, because the law says you cannot.
Once you sign off.
Exactly. And you cannot, if you are a supplier of accommodations or flights, and then come with your own terms and conditions. You are allowed to have your internal T's and C's, but they cannot supersede the Consumer Protection Act.
Okay.
But we are seeing some terms and conditions saying you cannot obtain a refund. Good and well, these days we are seeing a package insurance, of which it's recommended ukuthi mawubhuka accommodation or traveling, yes, you must have a travel insurance in case of, you know, emergency illness and protecting your luggage and so forth and so forth. So those are nice to have, but are we reading what we are signing for? Because as much as we've got those nice to have, they've got clauses. But if the clauses are capping the Consumer Protection Act, then it's totally illegal. Yes.
You know, Sis Ouma and you, Otto, I made reference to a case that has been in the news these past couple of weeks, since, in fact, when we started the festive season, where a group of about, I think about 20 people has lost well over 2 million rand through a booking agency, a travel agency that was promising them this trip. I think they started making their contributions because this was going to be a global trip, like a global tour, and multiple cities and countries that they were going to visit. So it was properly planned, but they started contributing from January. And then now, when they were just finalizing things, and then when they started contacting the owner, they were speaking to this person or communicating with this individual via WhatsApp, via telephonic conversations. This person's numbers is no longer going through. I think it's currently with their legal representatives at this particular time. So I'm not sure if it's still sub judice. So I was actually wondering if you haven't heard this case, but Sis Ouma and Otto, I want you to comment on this, but only after the break. Mbogele, let's take another quick ad break. We'll be back shortly after this. See you after this break. Mogele, welcome back. We're still taking your calls on 011-714-0671 and 011-714-0672. Nomus tumele WhatsApp 0608449857. Alternatively, send us your email to consumer@sabc.co.za. So, Oma, let's get your comment. I'm actually surprised ukuthi angakayizwa le ndaba, because it's all over, even in social media. And also talk to us about the fact that yindaba engathi lama lokhuzana lama scams, they are also prevalent ku social media, specifically WhatsApp.
Not quite as the case, but it will be interesting for these people to bring this case to the Ombud. However, for me, if I'm listening Gulento Ikulumayo Alicia Uguti, okay, fine. Ukuluma Uguti communication was through WhatsApp.
Yes.
And I must say, Uguti, WhatsApp is one of the red flag. So if ever the communication is only based on WhatsApp, Maumtengi, meluqaphele, ukuthi something is not right, something is off here, because WhatsApp is a mobile number which can go dead at any time. Umuntu angaphuma kuleyo number ungasakwazi ukumthola. Hence we say when you are on the website leyo supplier, check for physical address. Every business must have a registered physical address appearing on the website and a contact number, which is a landline.
Yes.
A landline is always linked to that address. That is something that we need to take note of when we are looking into these things. However, I'm also following Uguti. Any communication, maybe like email, you know, we are always encouraging consumers to say, have communication, give an email trail, you know, that you can fall back on. And also screenshots ama conversation wako, you know, naleyo supplier, especially mawenza ma payments, screenshots those, so that when the dispute arises, you know that you've got something to produce as evidence, which you were there and you were paying this person.
All right, let's hear from Otto. Otto, I mean, this is quite it's a confusing one, right? Because the victims, I think they do confirm that they were getting receipts whenever they would make those payments. So everything looked legit up until that point where they then had to just request the final information pertaining to their travel plan. So what do you think could have gone wrong here? And how would you advise these consumers who are now currently locked in battle with their legal attorneys to try and track this individual for whom we know was using a fake picture or even a fake number?
Yeah, I feel very badly placed to comment on this. It is probably sub judice. There are certainly, from my understanding through mainstream media, that a number of the individuals that have unfortunately lost money to this person or this business have actually taken it legal. So I would prefer not to comment at this stage. All that I can confirm is that, as per usual, this was not one of our members. And I think it just makes another strong statement in terms of the importance of verifying when you're handing over. And I was just absolutely amazed at some of the numbers that was being bandied about in terms of the size of the bookings and the value of some of those bookings. You know, we do all of our research when we buy a 5,000 Rand television, and then we just hand over R500,000 Rand to a person that we don't necessarily verify. I find that as much as we have a role and a responsibility, and together with people like the Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman, to help to train and educate and inform the consumer, there also has to be a level of accountability and responsibility that's taken by the individuals when they are handing over that kind of money to somebody to fulfill a certain expectation. So, you know, I think that there's a combined responsibility that we all need to take to try and mitigate and minimize the incidents when these occur.
All right.
Yeah, it's very disappointing. And, you know, for somebody that represents a professional industry, when these cases occur, it's so frustrating and so disappointing for all of us and all of our members and all of the industry. And as I said before, by and large, the majority are doing a phenomenal job looking after customers, delivering on experiences, delivering magic and beautiful experiences for families and friends to build memories on. Right. And when people like this come around, it really is upsetting and disappointing, because we generally do not have these issues occurring. This is a very professional industry.
Absolutely. It taints the whole industry. Thank you so much, Otto. And I'm sorry for putting you on the spot there. I know I just wanted a bit of comment, but thank you so much for that response there. So, Sis Ouma, maybe then let's talk about how do travelers then do lodge these complaints in the office Lakho, and iyiphi proof ozoyidinga wena?
Okay, consumers, they are welcome to lodge complaints and Ombud office. We have got different platforms, our website, social media platform, WhatsApp platform, call center number. And I know...
And they don't need to be verified.
No. We are there. We are there. And I know this is the time, you know, festive season. Some of the people have already booked. Some are trying to book last minute. So if any umtengi ufuna ukwazi ukuthi, how do I make sure? Yes. Or, okay. You know, then they can call call us, then we can take them through. You know, education is more important.
All right, let's talk to now. Okay, let's go to the lines and take Ubud Obed here in Johannesburg. Obed, thank you so much for staying on the line. Good
evening, my family.
Hello, Ubud Obed. How are you?
I'm fine. Abantu baso kakhulu with this thing is ladies because I know my sister is mad when it's coming to go out, blah blah blah, and all that.
Are you saying we like things, Ubud Obed? The ladies like things.
Most of them, 99% will be ladies. That will be wrong.
So what do you suggest we do, Ubud Obed?
No, just check whether their thing is right or not.
Okay, thank you so much, Obed, for that sound advice.
Thank you so much.
I think Obed, Obed says ladies. And is this a true representation, though? Is this a true assumption, Uguti? Ladies, specifically relating to your complaints, are they the ones that fall most victims?
Yeah, I must agree with him because it's all about ladies going out.
We've seen these group dates and whatnot, and people going away.
Exactly. So we fall into that trap. And the excitement, you know, the other thing that we have noticed and that we would like to put out there, Uguti, like we said earlier, if the price is too good to be true, trust your gut. You can't. You need to compare, make references. You know, ukuthi le trip le yokuya endaweni so mabathi laba ile mali so. Can I try another a supplier?
Ngibona ukuthi backpackers as well. I mean, you don't have to go through the normal formal travel agency routes because akhona ama backpackers that are also abasemthethweni.
Exactly. You can then fall back on those ones. But the other thing that we have also seen, ukuthi you pick up ukuthi you book a trip or a holiday, go website, legit, right? But when then it's time for payment, then there's a third party who is involved. So we have seen those. So we are saying, abatengi, they must ask questions. You know, I think we are still shying away from asking questions. It's your right to ask questions so that you understand, Guti, am I dealing directly now? Are you a travel agent? Because remember, once you're a travel agent, there's a legal contract binding, you know? So, but it doesn't mean, Guti, they've got the final word because the final word in any Consumer Protection Act.
All right. Well, that's the final word for this conversation at this particular time. So, Tata, our final at Breaking Buged, Unga Indao, Siabuya, to our bosses, can you please take note of your spending? We're back shortly after this. Unga Indao. Welcome back, Mbogele. This is our final segment. I'm still with Mr. Otto de Vries, joining us from our Cape Town studios, who is the CEO of the Association of Southern African Travel Agents and Travel Advisors, or ASATA. And here in studio with me, the lovely Ouma Ramaru from the Consumer Goods and Services Ombuds Office. So, Otto, maybe in closing, as we wind down our discussion, let's talk about what kind of support then is available for some of these victims who do fall, unfortunately, fall prey or victim to such scams. Do you in any way have any advice for them? Do you have any advisory bodies? I know you said you were speaking a lot. You do a lot of advocacy and associated works when we started this interview.
Yeah, I think, well, there's two parts to it. I think once the horse is bolted, the lovely lady sitting in front of you is unfortunately, you know, where the support structures start to kick in, certainly when people book travel. But from our side, as part of ensuring that we are representing a professional industry and to give comfort to consumers when they are considering using a travel agent or travel advisor, we do a tremendous amount of work in terms of training our members in understanding their legal responsibilities and obligations. And Ouma will attest that we've done a lot of work together. We have built out a travel agent guide to the Consumer Protection Act. We have provided guidelines to updating terms and conditions that are aligned with the legislative requirements around the Consumer Protection Act. We have done webinars. We do a lot of work around the ethics for travel agents so that they understand what their roles and responsibilities are. We have helped them to understand how they need to navigate the Consumer Protection Act and their roles and responsibilities as intermediaries. And I use that word very intentionally because travel agents, by and large, act as intermediaries. So we are the in-between between the supplier of the product and the service and the actual customer. We are facilitating not only putting together the itinerary or the program, but we're also making the booking, accepting the payments, and ensuring that those payments are passed on. And I just want to remind everybody that it's an incredibly complex industry with a lot of challenges. And we mustn't forget that outside of the context of South Africa, we do a lot of bookings to foreign countries that have very different legislation to maybe our own. But also we've got to remember that we have a very, very volatile currency. So South Africans want to be quoted in South African rands, but we all know that the price today can change overnight when suddenly the dollar increases in value or the euro. And, you know, who is responsible in carrying that potential loss? So there's a lot of challenges. It is a very, very complex and a very difficult reality that we live in. But I do continue to encourage, as a result of that complexity, that consumers, when they do choose to use a travel agent or a travel advisor, that they please do look out for ASATA membership. We are committed to delivering a professional service to you, the customer.
Wow, thank you so much for that information. And we do have your numbers. We've had your numbers on screen, Otto. So I suppose those that are aspirant travel agents or want to go into that route, or actually want you to come and verify their business and give them some of the tips that you've just given us, will be able to contact you. Thank you so much for that. In closing, Sis Ouma, I mean, as of course, ombuds nina-ke ama-complaint-ke siyazi ukuthi nidila nawo kuthatha isikhathi esingakanani, and nake nakwazi ukuthi nikhona ukuthi ni-reimburse umuntu who has been defrauded ngale ndlela le yokuthi ubhukhe a fraudulent travel plan or scheme?
Okay, masiqale la ukuthi kuthatha isikhathi esingakanani to resolve a complaint or to close a complaint. Okay, in terms of our code of conduct, Consumer Goods and Services Industry Code of Conduct, mele sithathe 60 business days. That is the maximum, but minimum 20 business days.
Okay.
So if there's a complexity in the case, then 60 business days. Okay. But beyond that, then it's unacceptable. That means we did not meet our timelines. So we push for that. And another thing that we want to give abatengi comfort about the Ombud services is that you are already frustrated, you lost money. The Ombud is there as an alternative dispute resolution body and is set up to mediate complaints that may arise between yourself as a consumer or the supplier. But then the services are free of charge because we understand correctly, but that you are already aggrieved and lost money. So you do not have to pay. And I'm saying this intentionally, ngoba abanye abantu bathi siye ku Ombud sabhadaliswa. Then you did not knock in the right door. Mauza ku Ombud, there's no payment at all. So to us, uguti mase resolve our complaints. The ultimate goal is to obtain redress for the consumer in line with the Consumer Protection Act. So yes, to your question, I agree, Uguti, such cases, Zama bookings, Zama airlines, we do obtain redress for consumers, but only if they've traded na a legit business.
Hey, very important, Uguti, you have to deal with Mr. Otto de Vries's ASATA accredited travel agencies. Let's quickly take us Pinky from Cape Town. I think she sees Mr. Otto there. She quickly wants to comment. Welcome, Pinky. Thank you so much for joining us. A very quick one. How can we assist you?
Thank you, Sisi. I was just making a comment. Thank you for the topic. It's such a nice topic.
Thank you so much.
The issue is, even if they are legit, they still run away with monies. We have an agent who's running back and forth in court right now because he took money from people. My sister was one of those people. She was actually dying with cancer. She ended up dying without a holiday. And that's the saddest thing that could ever happen because of the strength she took from this holiday that never happened. And she had lost so much money from someone who was seen to be legit, like fully legit in all ways and means.
You know what,
So-
Sispinki, I'm going to ask you to please share your numbers with our producers. I'm going to share those numbers with both Mr. Otto de Vries as well as Usis Ouma la studio so that we can see ukubaba kusiza kanjani. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, sisenkosi
All right.
kakhulu, and we're sorry about the loss, yes, wako. A very quick one, Otto, there. I mean, this is quite concerning. This dealership or this service provider was seemingly a legit one, offered services, and somebody actually died from the stress that they experienced through this fraudulent deal.
It's desperately sad, and it's just so unfortunate that these sort of things are occurring, and it weighs very heavily on me because I feel that there is a very important responsibility that we as an association play in representing what we are committed to, which is a professional industry. So my only comment is sincere sadness for your loss. And, we'll be happy to hear through your producers if there is some way, and together, obviously, with Ouma and her team, if there's some way that we can try and redress or support that.
Thank you so much, Otto. I mean, Otto, I'm really, really hoping that maybe in the next year we'll be talking about ASATA being the principal regulator of all these travel companies. I'm going to urge Ouma here in studio to make sure that she pushes towards this legislation because, I mean, I see that you are gravely concerned about the conduct and practices because it does impact upon the whole sector as well as industry. And this is quite a reputable industry that, I mean, it's not just used by locals, even people that are traveling from overseas. Sis Ouma, ngicela please usivalele ishontokazi ukuthi sivale kanjani, or anything you want to say to Sis Pink.
Yeah, it's just very sad to
Very
hear what
sad.
she has said, but what we can
But these
say...
are real things.
Yeah,
In
real
reality,
issues on the
ziyenzeka, abantu
ground.
bayashona.
Real issues on the ground. But you know, what is comforting is that the company is legit. So,
So
yeah, exactly, because I trust in the CPA framework.
All right, Sis Pinky, bapromise ke ukuthi bazoyibhekisisa le ndaba bayifakela ama specs serious. I hope ukuthi indaba yakho iresolve ke siswami. Once again, condolences and siyaxolisa ngelosi yakho. Mr. Otto de Vries, the CEO of ASATA, thank you so much for your meaningful contributions, sir. I'm talking to you next year. I'm manifesting this. You're going to be the chief regulator of course, of all these travel agencies. Sis Ouma, thank you so much for joining us. Sis Ouma Ramaru from the Consumer Goods Ombudsman Office. Mbukele sifika lapho ke emaphethelweni ohlelweni lethu la namhlanje. Thank you so much for staying with us. Babukeli, please sicela nibe careful. We can't be saying the same thing every year. Sithi fundani, verify information. Ayibo, 15 years later sisakhuluma leyo nto. Sicela sifundisane nalabo abangazi. If umncane wena uyayazi technology, cela ukuthi uassist abantu abadala, guys. Akukho mnandi ukuthi ulahlekelwe imali, especially when we know ukuthi yonke into iyabiza emhlabeni and sonke sisebenzela kanzima imali yethu. Angithi msale kahle, ngiyanithanda. Bye bye.